Ready to lead like you've been doing it for years? The truth is, leadership is hard, but waiting to feel ready is harder. This is the Instant Leader podcast with Andy Lee, bringing you real stories and proven principles to lead with more confidence today.
In this episode, we'll dive deep into what authentic leadership looks like when you're faced with impossible odds. You'll hear Lynn talk candidly about building something from nothing, embracing honesty and vulnerability, the power of relationships, and how courage and sometimes a little foolishness are essential on the leadership journey. We'll also talk about the practical realities of leading teams, navigating conflict, and the importance of humility and servanthood. So whether you're leading a team, dreaming of starting something new, or simply want to hear a story filled with wisdom, faith, and practical lessons, you're in for a treat. Lynn, welcome to the Instant Leader podcast. It is such a privilege and honor to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm delighted and honored to be on this. What a treat. And to spend time with you.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I know we've had many conversations over the years, and we've surfed together, and we've just had lots of coffee times. And so it's great because I've had that privilege of spending time with you. I know all the wisdom and the experience that you can share as a leader in your own right. So it's just great to have you here and to be able to put this as a platform for other people to kind of hear as well. Lynn, could you, for maybe in a couple of sentences, just kind of briefly describe your background and your context and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, that's a long story because, as you can see, I'm not as young as you are, Andy. So it can take a very long time to tell my story. But I grew up in South Africa and grew up on the East Coast in a place called KwaZulu-Natal, the province of KwaZulu-Natal, in a city called Pietermaritzburg. And I lived in South Africa till I was 28. Spent time, I went to university in Durban, and then from there taught for a number of years at a beautiful school. And then out of that, joined a local church that saw exponential growth and was part of that. And in the middle of all of that, and also I was doing a lot of singing, done a whole lot of albums, and was traveling around South Africa doing singing as well. But at 28, I had a very serious accident and landed up in hospital and was told I would never walk again, which is quite an extreme thing. So out of that, I was in a wheelchair for a period of just over 2 years. And my healing is miraculous. That's what my neurosurgeon said as well. He can't explain it. Didn't quite want to use the word miracle, kind of went, but he said it eventually. And out of that came opportunities to share my story. And one of the places was here in the UK. And through a whole series of events over a few years, I then came and started living in the UK. So I've lived here for longer than I've lived in South Africa, but I still have a very strong South African accent.
You do indeed. You didn't want to adopt the UK accent, huh?
No, and because I spent 18 years living in Southampton and then moved up to Manchester, that's where I met you and Lisa. I can't pick up the Mancunian accent. It's great, but I can't do it.
Would you really want to?
Oh, you know what? It's all relative, isn't it? I go to America and they think I sound very British.
Oh, really?
I go to South Africa and they think I sound very British. I come here and they say you sound very South African. So, who knows, Andy?
Who knows? And right now, what's your role? You run an NGO. Could you briefly kind of go over that?
I do, yes. So for the last 10 years, I founded a charity down in South Africa in Cape Town called New Day United. It's a little thing up there. We work in an area of Tambo Village, Gugulethu and Manenberg, with the most impoverished people, high levels of AIDS and HIV, although with retrovirals, they're very much under control, as well as TB is a very big thing there. High, very, very high unemployment, and lots of gender-based violence that's there. But we have been there for 10 years, been some really challenging situations that happened there. But our reason for existing there is to equip people, empower people, and then for them to encounter a life that's more than just money. So we have adult programs in the mornings, and then in the afternoon we look after about 120 kids.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. And that isn't something that it's not an easy journey, I assume.
No.
How did you even have the courage at the beginning to start something like this? What was the kind of moment that you thought, right, I'm gonna do this?
Don't know whether it was courage or foolishness. Maybe kind of a mixture of the two. But I woke up here in Manchester one morning, had this weird little phrase, the regeneration of a city, the restoration of a nation, and the revival of a continent. And I remember thinking, okay, this is a major midlife crisis, and I've just got to breathe through this, because I was on leadership at the church where we both go. And but it got very strong. So I actually, instead of just jumping into it, I kind of pondered it for a good amount of time. I think that's always so important, is that we don't just rush into good ideas. Need to know that this is actually something that's got legs. And so chatted with a number of people, got some really profound wisdom, and realized that it wasn't for here in the UK, but it was for the land of my birth. And I had been doing I've always gone back to South Africa, and I, excuse me, did a lot of work in Cape Town. And so I felt that was, even though I grew up in KwaZulu-Natal, I felt Cape Town was the right place. Now, Cape Town is extremely beautiful, fabulous place to visit. But if you land in Cape Town and drive from the airport into Cape Town, you're surrounded on both sides of the roads by shacks, by people living in extreme poverty. And so I knew that I was being called to those people, many people who have come from rural areas to come and work in Cape Town to make some money. And then I foolishly had a conversation with somebody, and I said, where's the most extreme place to start an NGO? Because I'd never worked in that world at all. So I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, but Lord, I'll just allow you to direct my steps, get wisdom from others around me. And it became very clear that it was in the area where we are now based. And then I knew I couldn't do it alone. I knew that this was a vision that I had, and I was very clear on the fact that I wasn't moving back to South Africa, but that I was to raise a team of people out there, and then for them to be able to take it on. And so it started off with a young lady called Anna Marie, who's about to take my position in the next little while. And Anna Marie came and joined me, and I said, I've got absolutely no money. But if you want to come on an adventure with me, you can. And it was a real leap of faith for both of us. But the incredible thing was that in those early days, where I'm sure you understand this, Andy, where you are talking to people and you say, well, our concept is, and we want to do this, and we want to do that. And I remember sharing it with a friend of mine, and his comment at the end of my amazing, I thought, PowerPoint presentation, he said, not even Jesus can do all this. And I was
How encouraging.
devastated. But he helped me be able to look at what we wanted to do. And so out of that, Anna Marie and I, founded New Day. And we now have a team of 18 people and a number of volunteers.
That's incredible growth. And
Yeah.
that all came from initially this leap of faith.
Yeah.
And how did you, I mean, knowing that you had very little resource or none at all in terms of money, how did you get through that? It was just a vision that you had and a desire and a passion. And it was that shared with the right people.
I think for us, especially in the world of charity or the space of charity, and when you found something, you have to know a calling, especially as you pioneer it. You have to know that this is going to work. And I think what happened is, over the years, because of my upbringing and, kind of people I'd met along the way, I knew some business people. So I remember having a conversation with two guys who run a very successful business in South Africa, and shared with them what I was thinking I was going to do. And I saw one of them look at his watch. And I said to him, okay, so Robin, if you didn't love me so much, you and Patrick didn't love me so much, how much time would you give me? And they said 5 minutes. And they said, but we know your heart, so keep us in touch with what you're going to do. And I think that was an amazing thing for me. I didn't have to, faith cometh by hinting. I just asked them to come on the journey with me. And what was an incredible moment, I call it a miracle moment, was once Anna Marie had said, I'm with you. And bear in mind, she and her husband were not employed at that stage, and they had 2 kids. So it was an extreme decision for her to make, because she wasn't walking into a salary. And I didn't have loads of money because I'd left my position at the church. And so there was a little bit of money that were coming my way, but I was also trying to share that with a lady here who was helping us set up the charity here as well as in South Africa. But as soon as Anna Marie said, I'm in, I got a phone call. It literally was on that same day. I got a phone call from my friend Patrick, or was it Robin? One of them phoned me and just said, we've thought about it and we've decided we want to give you an amount of money. And I was blown away. And I phoned Anna Marie up and I said, your salary is covered. This is how much you're going to get. So I plowed all that money into her as she was on the ground there. I spent, when New Day first started out, I spent for the first number of years, I was there for a good chunk of the year, just helping shape all the governance stuff that needs to happen, all the nitty gritty of starting a business or an NGO.
Yeah, yeah. So, Lynn, I think that's testament to, may I call it, relationship capital that you had built up to that point with the business, the 2 businessmen and Anna Marie. What do you think, looking back now, you did that really helped build that to the point where people bought into you, maybe before they even fully understood the vision and the organization that you wanted to build?
I think honesty was a very important thing. I wasn't trying to blag it. And I certainly wasn't kind of trying to twist my story to win their approval. I was very honest in saying, I've never worked in this space, but I know that God is calling me into this space. And it is an adventure. And I want you to just, I'm trying to figure my way through this. But I think what happened is it was, those three words: regeneration, restoration, and revival. Those are great words. Then you have to unpack what that's all about. And so as I was unpacking and getting it to a place of knowing clarity of what I was called to, I took these people who trusted me, who knew me, on this journey with me. So there was, honesty and accountability. I made myself accountable to them. And that was I think those two were pivotal columns of strength that we had as New Day. I didn't know I was doing it. It just happened. It wasn't like, oh, I need to be honest here, or I need to be accountable here. And learning how to celebrate little wins along the way was always an important thing. And I think those were two of the very important things. And then as I began to, settle in and have people ask me, well, why that? Why are you doing that? What does that mean? Etc. It became very clear our focus was education and health. Those are the two areas that we were going to go into. Those were our focus points. So in the education, we knew that we wanted to equip adults, and we decided no kind of age bracket, although we do get a lot of young people in. And so we've got a computer learning center, we've got a job readiness course, we've got a sewing enterprise that happens. We did for a while, did web design, but the guy left, he got a job. So we dropped that because we had a call center training thing. He got a job. So we dropped that for a period of time. And then we realized, oh, hang on a minute. We're going to have to drop these things if they don't duplicate themselves. So that was a learning curve for us. And then, as I said, we're now in a school of 620 kids that we've got computer labs there. And then in the afternoon, we look after our kids. But we also have we call it foodscaping. So we work with the local community and we plant food. And that is the aspect of health that we look at, is ensuring that people have good food. And
that's incredible impact now to think back over the 10-year journey and all the people that's been impacted, thousands, right? And just that you're changing generations there as well, because you're working with such an extreme, like, poverty, malnourished area. For you to step in there and have done what you've done, it is incredible. But it all started with, like, a courage. You said maybe courage mixed with foolishness. Let's call it courage. But going back to, say, leadership here, Lynn, when did you start recognizing, and I love that you didn't even know, like, you were honesty and accountability, it wasn't something that you were intentionally doing, it's just who you are. So it became a part of your character. When did you start maybe realizing that those traits would help you as a leader, or are helping you as a leader at the time?
Yeah, well, I think way back, when I was teaching, the important thing there is I was teaching, young boys. And one of the things that I absolutely realized, that if I was going to be able to reach these kids, I needed to be authentic. And that led to me being honest, and that was an amazing thing, to win these guys onto my side, even though I was such a young teacher at that age. And then, moving out of teaching, I went into the church for a little while and worked in a church in Pietermaritzburg, where I grew up. And once again, I had tremendous responsibilities with the people that were part of our music department. And then I was also involved with missions. We were doing missions out to other nations and other areas. So I think there, again, I realized the importance of honesty and accountability, but also kindness, you know. And I always say this about leadership. Leadership needs to be absolutely, the bedrock of leadership is always servanthood.
Mm-hmm.
If leadership is about me dominating from the top and being able to say, you do what I tell you to do, well, I want to submit that that's not leadership. That's you managing, you know, you're trying to manage. And there's nothing wrong with management. Absolutely not. But I think leadership is a very different thing. And leadership is never about just making me great. It's always about making others shine. It's never about me. I mean, and I've been privileged to be on incredible platforms. But if it's always about the Lynn Swart show, and everybody's got to support my Lynn Swart show, it's not really creating the best in others. And I always say, I want to be the best expression of who God made me to be and call out the best expression of who God made others to be, whether they believe in God or not. So even with New Day, sorry, I'm going on a bit of a ramble here, but
It's great.
so even with New Day, you know, we have two sides of where our building is, where rival gangs sort of meet. And so we've had shooting right outside our building, you know. We can either see these people as, you know, absolute reprobates, horrible people, or we can see them as people with tremendous potential. And the fascinating thing is, you know, this is a whole other story, but we had an armed robbery a number of years ago. But we didn't run away. We stayed in the place. And I think that is another level of leadership, not only from me, but our team, is that we weren't intimidated by this. We had lots of questions, but we were determined to stay and make a difference. And so when I look at people who are in gangs, and I know some of them have been on our courses, I see these amazing people who are looking for purpose in their lives and to be able to draw that out of them. So, yeah, I think honesty, accountability, kindness, generosity is always, you know, to not hold on to what I have, but to be able to give it to others, you know. And for Anna Marie, as she prepares to take over the role of exec director, I say to her often, and I'm sure you've heard this statement, but it is such a truth, that my ceiling will be her floor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I want. I don't want to have her to have to, you know, do all the hard work that I've had to do. Hey, you take it on now. Fly.
Yeah.
And so leadership is always looking to make others fly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great phrase. That's a great phrase. Lynn, when you hear the phrase instant leadership, what does that mean to you, especially in moments when you haven't felt ready or absolutely certain?
Yeah, I think we will all have to step up at some stage in our lives to be leaders, big ways or small ways. Everybody is called to lead in certain ways, you know. But for me, instant leadership, I kind of find myself thinking, is it instant? You know, there's instant coffee, instant tea.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be that kind of moment of, I've got to lead here. And that's a brilliant place to be. But then you've got to grow as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like an instant baby. When that baby arrives in the world, yay! But there's a lot of hard 9 yards to bring that child to, you know, be able to flourish in life. I mean,
Yeah.
you and Lisa are facing that with your darling boy, you know. So
Well,
I think for me, the instant leader means don't be afraid to step into it. If it comes your way, don't be afraid to step into it.
Do you think that you mentioned you have to grow as a leader? You mentioned, before a baby comes, it's kind of baking for around 9 months. So there's that preparation time. Is leadership something that you have to practice or figure out in theory before you start exercising? Or would you say, you mentioned there are moments, so as you're doing it and as you're practicing, that helps you to grow? Like there's not pivotal points, like positions that you earn, then you're suddenly a leader. Is it more a kind of smoother journey?
I don't think it's smooth. You know, my journey in leadership has been nothing. You know, there have been smooth moments, easy moments, calmer moments, but smooth, I don't think I would use that word. And I think for me, because of my faith, I often look at the brilliance of leadership through the Bible, you know, and they were all a bunch of reprobates, you know, all these leaders. They really were. They didn't have it all together. But I think one of the things that I see is that they didn't try to do it all alone. You know, the Bible is full of they inquired of God. And I think if you don't have a faith, I think find people that you can inquire of. Find people who are wise. Find people who will tell you the truth. Find people who will say, you know, listen, it's a great idea, but actually it's not going to work. You know, you need to rethink this, like I had. And, you know, I look at the guys that Jesus chose, and, you know, none of them were particularly leadership qualities in today's world. I think we would look at them and kind of go, you know, just enjoy fishing, you know, not much going on there. Or, you know, keep collecting those taxes or whatever.
Yeah.
But what is curious for me when I look at them is that there was that instant moment of where Jesus says to them, come and follow me. Amazing. And they become instant leaders the moment they say yes. And then they kind of, you know, walked with Jesus for 3 years. And I think what is so important in leadership is don't think you can make it alone. You really can't. There will be moments that you will have to lead alone, but you don't have to do the whole journey alone. And, you know, surround yourself with other people who have done the journey before you and glean from them and learn from them and take the hard conversations from them. I think that's so, so important. So, yeah.
Yeah. Having that openness, right, to receive input from people that you trust is
Yeah.
massive, because
Yeah.
you have blind spots. So
Yeah.
you're not necessarily going to see everything. And the more we talk about this, Lynn, it feels like almost sometimes the label of a leader or leadership is detrimental to the growth of someone's leadership. Like, you spend so much time talking about the term, we end up potentially getting fixated on that when that's never the end goal. Like, you didn't set out thinking, I want to be a great leader. You set out thinking, I want to restore, I want to regenerate, I want to revive, I want to make this difference, I want to bring other people in. But through that process, you learn the aspects and the traits and the characteristics of good leadership. But
Yeah.
it's a means to an end, right? Not the end itself. Just like you were saying when Jesus called the fishermen and said, come follow me. But yes, it's not like, oh, I want that because I want to be a leader. I'm a leader now. It's not. It was a bigger vision. It was a mission, and becoming a leader in the process is just, it's a byproduct, isn't it?
Well, otherwise it's a pressure to perform. And with the pressure to perform, I always ask myself this question: what are my insecurities that I'm facing right now that's making me want to lead by saying I am a leader?
Mm.
And so, anybody can call themselves a leader. I'm a leader of this, and they lead with titles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happens so often is, in businesses or NGOs, when I started to know that it was time for me to be able to look into the succession plan, and both the South African board and the UK board were saying, if they were so kind, they were sort of jumping around, not wanting to offend. And they said, well, what's your succession plan? And I said, I haven't a clue right now, but I'm not holding on to my position. I don't know. And I started to explore some things, how often in business, now I don't have an answer to this, but just hopefully you can track with me on this. I think so often what we do is we let's say a CEO of a company leaves and a new CEO comes in. And I've seen this so often, is what they do is they kind of go, I'm going to do this, and you better all line up behind. And there's chaos that ensues. I've just been in conversations with some leaders or some people who are high up in companies and having to deal with this whole scenario. And so they throw a bomb in there. And I wonder sometimes whether we miss it by looking for, I'm going to use this language, but bear with me. We go for the hireling rather than the son in the house. Now, sometimes the hireling is the right person. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think that kind of leadership thing for us is that we've got to, if we come into a position, not just pioneer like I did, but if we come into that position, if we don't have humility and the ability to be able to be kind and listen and watch for a good chunk of time, I think you're missing out on what could be an amazing, amazing way to build that company or that NGO.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm so happy with Anna Marie because she's walked with me for 10 years.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And I've spoken into all aspects of her life. I've given her permission to speak into me as well. It's been iron sharpening iron. We know, we honor the positions that we have. She's the operations director and I'm the executive director. We honor those positions, but we don't have a power play.
Yeah.
We're collaborating together.
Yeah.
So it's not about the titles. It's about let's get the job done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it very, very, eye-opening opinion you made there about when CEOs come in or there's a transition of leadership and they come in and they seem to just want to make their mark straight away. And that potentially stems from a sense of insecurity or even misplaced identity, isn't it? That they feel like for them to matter, they have to come in and just seemingly make a difference immediately versus being in the background, observing, being patient, and just watching how things are.
Well, I think there's a lot that goes on because there's that zeal and wanting to come in and, I've got a vision here. I want to make a difference here. And that's a good thing to have. The other negative thing is, well, I'm going to come out punching first so that nobody can punch me. And sometimes that pressure, I've got to prove to everybody that I can do this job well. So there are a whole lot of things, but I think the most important thing is that you know that you are going in there, you're content in who you are, you're steady in who you are, and you know what you can bring, and you've got that patience to bring it at the right time.
Yeah. So that it's that. So what you're saying is some leaders, they cling to roles because they confuse identity with the impact or influence they can have.
Sometimes that insecurity. Yeah.
Security.
Yeah.
Um, and that can
And
happen.
I've been there, and I know that.
So you're speaking from experience.
Yeah, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. All the fingers are pointing at me. This is me. I could have written that song.
and how did you learn that about yourself? Like, how did you learn that lesson? Because people can experience that and still not know, and then they are pointing fingers at everyone else. Like, they're the right person because they're not listening. They're not falling in line. I need to replace that person, that department. This structure doesn't work for me, clearly. So, and then instead of stepping out, they lean in even further and potentially cause more chaos.
Yeah. For me, there will always be aspects of conflict that we will have to deal with. But I personally don't put on boxing gloves when I've got to deal with things. I lean in with conversation, and I lean in with not wanting to always win the argument, but to be able to learn and understand and get to that point where, there's that very simple thing about marriages. This is the issue here. We're not the issue. We're dealing with the issue here. And so I do take that into the work and the communication that I have, especially with the people that are part of our team, because they are facing, so many things. But that respect of them as individuals and leaning in for a conversation with them. I can't remember the exact question you put to me. Say it again.
Well, I'm not sure I remember myself now. Then.
Yeah, so I think that's an important thing as well. And I think to have people that would tell the honest truth about you. So I love the fact of as leaders to often have people in the organization who do that kind of 365 of you, look at every area of your life, and be brave enough to do it, even though it may be scary.
Yeah.
And not to get defensive in it, but begin to say, oh, hang on a minute. Let me look at my internal design here. Let me see what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be got rid of, what needs to be added, those kind of things is so important.
Yeah. So, and again, that kind of, that means that you have to have your identity not placed in other people's opinions of you, right? And that's one of the reasons why people may struggle to ask for feedback. And I've had this conversation with other people. I remember doing this thing with a friend. I said, hey, why don't we just give feedback to each other? And he gave feedback to me, and I was like asking questions, being curious. Oh, why do you think that is? Oh, I'm surprised that that's the perspective that you have, but that's really interesting. And then I proceeded to give, okay, now it's my turn. And then when I did, I just noticed like the walls coming up, the defensiveness kicking in. But so even though we said this was what we were going to do, it just didn't happen that way. And so there's that level of awareness that's sometimes missing, isn't it?
And I think, kind of setting the ground rules. So if you're going to have that kind of feedback, I think you've got to be able to say, okay, you need to know that I'm for you, and that you have the right and the privilege to be able to disagree with me, but I have the right and privilege to be able to say, hang on a minute, why are you disagreeing with me? Explain to me why this is happening. What's going on in you right now? Why have you built a wall? So you set those ground rules, which then allows for open and honest conversation. And I think even with that, I think sometimes, there have been people who have come to me and said, okay, can you give me feedback? And because I've observed them and know them for quite some time, I know that they actually don't want feedback. They just want affirmation and to be able to tell them they're doing a good job and they're great and all the rest of it. And so I will tailor my conversation to that. But I will also say to them, now, there are some things that I think you need to work on. So if you would like me to help you with those, hey, let's have another conversation on another day. And that gives them time to really be able to think it through. And sometimes we just need to go for the one thing rather than a whole lot of things. I see this and this and this and this and this in you.
Yeah. So they don't feel too beat up.
Yeah.
So
but I've also had conversations with people who say, am I a good leader? And I've said to them, by you asking me that question, you're not too sure yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That really, it's a reflection of how they see themselves, isn't it, and how they perceive themselves. Even then, they're looking for encouragement. So again, it's like that a kind of misplaced source of strength or identity in their own leadership. It's like, well, Lynn, if you say I'm a good leader, I am. But if you say I'm not, I'm walking on sand here a little bit. So it really does, like, the theme here then is that this build up of character over time, those traits that really would serve you well in any situation as a good person, regardless of whether you're leading or not. The honesty, the humility, the servanthood, which is a big thing. Like when you recognize that when you are influencing, you're doing it to serve others and to do something that's outside of yourself. That then takes the focus off you and onto other people or the mission at hand. Thereby, I think, just releasing more space and openness to be able to receive the feedback, because it's not about you and your identity. It's like, it's about working towards that common goal.
Yeah. And you know what I love? One of the things that I love to do is that, I don't know if you know this, but the word for a priest in Latin is the word pontifex.
I didn't know
and
that.
Pontifex means a bridge builder. And, I think one of the important things when dealing with people is always to build a bridge, build a bridge. So there's some communication that goes on that's filled with life, that people feel they can come to you, that they can approach you. And I think a leader is never about just me, but it's us. So when I go back to Jesus and his model, he was always inclusive of the guys around him, and ensuring that they were part of all his victories,
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful. And then I was reading the other day about when the woman comes to him and needs her child to be healed, and she's not an Israelite. And Jesus says something. He says, like the dog under the table. What? Now, she was desperate, so she pressed in. But I think also that even though he was saying it, she was reading his heart. She could see that he was not against her, but he was for her. And I love that. And I think as a leader, we need to let people know that we're for them and not against them. We take people with us, you know. You can't lead if there are no people. We know that. I'm sure many people have said that on your podcast, but, what am I doing here? Am I, pushing people into all that they are meant to be,
Hmm.
and I think that's an important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the most important from what you've shared. Like, people have to know that you have their best interests at heart,
Yeah.
and that alone is what will break down the walls and break down the division and break down defensiveness. Um, have there been times, Lynn, though, where, as much as you've tried, people still question your motivation, and yet you still have to lead and, like, maybe manage and have those really tricky conversations? And what do you do in situations like that?
Yeah. Some of them I win, some of them I don't. That's the honest truth. I think one of the important things is, and I'm sort of pondering here for a little bit because I've had this situation happen over the years where there has been somebody who was part of a team that I had the privilege of leading, who just challenged me at every turn, every turn. And there was a moment where I realized that actually I was not the right person to lead them. And so I had that conversation with them, and I just said, this is not me trying to guard my turf. This is me saying, I don't think I've got the right things that you are looking for, or I don't think I can bring out the best in you. And so I think what we need to do is begin to explore the kind of person that would bring out the best in you. And let's try and see if we can slot you into that space.
That's great, Lynn. And I think I want to just hone in on that, in case people listening have missed that. You there took ownership of the situation. Like, you could have easily said, "You're really difficult to lead, and every time I say left, you say right, and you're quite disruptive, and it's breaking the harmony of my team and slowing everything down. See you later." But that's not your approach. You were saying, maybe I'm not doing the job that I can, or there's someone better than me that can help serve you better, that can help you reach your potential. And I recognize that I might not be that person. That's powerful.
I think it's so important. And that's leadership. You see, management says, you're not doing the job, or, you're not listening to me, so please leave. I've got to manage the space. Leadership says, even though we're like oil and water and you can't stand me, I am still seeing in you the potential to become somebody amazing. So therefore, I'm going to help you achieve that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't always, again, I speak from a little bit of experience, end up in a happy ending for both parties, because you're like, well, I'm going to kindly show you the door. Like, you're in the senior position, so you have to make the call.
Yeah.
And the other person still might not understand what you're saying. They might feel rejected.
Mm. No, and I've had that, definitely had that. And so, when I've said I'm not the right person, I'm thinking of a particular person here. And the comeback was, no, well, I can change this and do that. And I said, no, I absolutely know that I'm not the right person here. So I'm gonna walk this journey with you, but I need you to know that you are no longer going to be part of the team here because it's not bringing out the best in you.
Yeah.
And we've tried and tried and tried.
Yeah.
So let's allow this to be dealt with. Let's deal with this so you can go on and do the things that you need to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then I put a time frame on it, you know. I've said I will walk with you for the next 3 months. You know, but please, you know, I'll look for you tell me what kind of thing would really float your boat. I'll try and see if I can find somewhere like that. But then again, you know, I was telling you earlier on before we started recording this about somebody who, you know, stole a whole lot of stuff from us. Well, no mercy there then, because that person's not come back and repented or said, I'm really sorry, I didn't, you know, they've just done it. And it's affected huge amounts of people's lives. You know, we don't have the computers that this person has taken, you know, to be able to equip others. Well, no, you are never coming back. You are never coming to be part of us again. No.
Yeah. And that's an important distinction, right? Showing the kindness doesn't mean that you kind of do it in a unwise and foolish way, right? There has to be consequences, and that's part of you as a leader as well, being strong in those situations and recognizing that, hey, there's going to be knock-on effects if you do something bad or something that harms us negatively, and there's no remorse. This is how you'll deal with it.
Yeah. And you know what? I think a leader as well, we need to watch that we have that level of communication that we're breathing. We're not antagonistic. We're very level-headed. We're very metered. And this is it. You know, no.
Yeah. So clear lines where people
Clear
know.
lines.
People know where you
Clear
stand.
lines. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great, Lynn. That's really,
I
really.
once had, well, one of our team went, "Ooh, you make me very nervous where you get very quiet and very slow talking because we know we better straighten up our ties and pull our suit jackets. Not that they wear ties and jackets, but
That's
I thought,
a good thing, right? Because that means that you've shown enough consistency in the way that you behave that people can start to predict what you're going to be like in certain situations. And that's
yeah,
what you want. The opposite of that is inconsistency. And then people are like, oh, I don't know what Lynn's going to think about this. I don't know how she's going to be. I don't know what she's going to be like today. Like that's not good, is it?
it's not good. And I think, you know, as a leader, of course I get cross. And, you know, I want to say all manner of things, but I rein it in because once it comes out of your mouth, you may be right, but you've lost the situation because you are now defensive, you fighting. No, you've got to just, as a leader, you've got to take that responsibility of finding that place of security in your role and position, asking for that kindness and that humility, being able to be strong but not cruel.
Yeah.
And I've seen, and I've done this in the past, is that, you know, cruelty really is not a very good thing. People remember that.
Yeah. 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 Lynn, that's love it. Thank you. I know we said before this, we didn't know where the conversation was going to go. I think I barely looked at the prepared notes. I think we've touched on some really great insights and points.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me onto this, really.
No,
Yeah.
it's been great. So, Lynn, what would you say to somebody who is maybe at the earlier stages of their journey and just kind of questioning their own leadership influence? Like, how would they continue on this journey for them? What would you say?
Yeah. I think what needs to happen is, as leaders, we sometimes look inwards and we deal with what's going on in our minds. And I want to say to leaders, it's always important to look up as well. Find faith. It does play a part in leadership. It definitely does. And to find that faith. And I think learn how to laugh at yourself. I take what I'm called to do and my responsibilities very seriously, but I also know how to laugh at myself.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing to be able to do. And when I stumble and fall, when I get it wrong, get up, dust yourself off, get some people around you who love you and care for you. Keep going.
Yeah.
And I have learned more from my failures than all my successes. And honestly can say that.
Yeah.
I've hated the failures. I've hated them.
Really?
Oh. But when I look back on them, I just think, man, I've learned this and this and this. I've learned these things from that. But I'm not defined by my failures. And that's an important thing as well. If you're defined by them, they will sneak around and kind of debilitate you at times. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stop you from trying in the future.
So keep going. Get those who will cheer you on. Get those who will speak the truth. And keep vulnerable. Keep honorable.
That's great. Lynn, thank you. It's absolute pleasure and honor to call you my friend and to have known you for all of these years.
Thanks, man.
And to have you to
Good
share.
to know. It's good to call you friend as well. I'm still waiting for that dim sum.
We need to do that, don't we? We definitely do. Great. Lynn, appreciate your time on the show and then just investing in this. And I'm sure that people...
Hey, you're welcome. Would you mind if I just said a prayer?
Go ahead.
Is that okay?
Sure.
So if you're watching this, I'm going to encourage you, just close your eyes for a second and lift your head and take some deep breath. Just breathe in deeply. Lord, I thank you so much that we are so fearfully and wonderfully made. And Lord, I pray for every person who's listening in on this instant leadership, that they would just know whether they are people of faith or no faith, that they would know that they are seen and that they are loved. And just pray, Lord, for encouragement for them, that they would be placed into great courage. And Lord, that they would know that there are people that can surround them, that will help them on this journey of leadership. So bless them, I pray, Lord, and let them take a deep drink of your kindness and your love and your wisdom and your peace. I ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. God bless you, Lynn. Until next time.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Instant Leader. If this episode helped, please follow the show and leave a quick review. It really helps others find us. For practical resources and to join the community, head to theinstantleader.com. I'm Andy Lee. See you next time.